Imagine a muddy street in 14th century London, where the air chokes with smoke and the reek of tanning hides. You're in a noblewoman's hall, its walls draped with tapestries that cost less than her true treasure, a wooden box locked tight holding 6 metal needles. Each one gleams like a shard of moonlight hand-forged by a blacksmith who'd sooner sell his soul than botch the job. These aren't just tools, they're power wealth, a dynasty stitched into slivers of iron. Lose one, and you're not just out of sewing aid, you're kissing your status goodbye. The Lady Eleanor sweeps past you, her silk gown whispering envy. She opens the box at her feast and the room falls silent. Merchants, knights, even the priest lean closer, eyes glinting like thieves. 6 needles each, a fortune lie on velvet, their points sharp enough to pierce ambition. More precious than diamonds, she boasts, voice dripping with pride. You'd laugh, but the math checks out. A single needle could buy a cow, maybe 2. Diamonds pretty, but useless when winter's clawing at your rags. You catch a servant's glance, her hands raw from scrubbing pots. She'd kill for one of those needles, not for vanity, but survival. Mending a cloak could mean another month without frostbite. Yet here's Eleanor, flaunting them like a peacock, her guests green with want. One night Sir Roger brags he'd trade his warhorse for a 7th. Madness, you think, but his eyes are dead serious. A horse dies, a needle endures sowing futures. The air shifts heavy with whispers. Someone mentions the curse-old gossip about a needle that pricked its owner and brought plague. Eleanor scoffs, but her fingers hesitate over the box. You notice the smallest needle, its tip faintly tarnished, like it's seen too much. The firelight flickers, and for a heartbeat it seems to hum low and wrong. Superstition sure, but in a world where a lost pin could bankrupt a family who's laughing, Eleanor locks the box, her smile tight. The feast resumes, but the needles linger in everyone's mind sharper than the daggers on their belts. You step outside the street's muck, sucking at your boots. A tailor hurries past, clutching a borrowed needle like it's his child. One slip and he's done. Welcome to a world where a speck of iron outshines a gem and every stitch feels like a gamble with fate. So what's creepier, the obsession, or the fact you're starting to get it? Share your weirdest history fact bet, it can't top this. You're in a cramped workshop in Paris, 1372, where the air's thick with wool dust and desperation. Thomas the tailor, a wiry man with haunted eyes, kneels on the floor sifting through scraps like a man possessed. His needle, his only needle borrowed from a merchant's wife, is gone. Not misplaced, not dropped, but gone like it sprouted legs and fled. His hands shake clammy as the Seine's banks, because losing it means ruin. That needle's worth more than his shop, his tools, his name. The street outside hums with market chatter, but inside it's just Thomas and his dread. He checks the floorboards, the candle wax, even his own sleeves, as if the needle's playing a cruel jest. It's not just a tool. It's his livelihood, the key to mending cloaks for lords who don't tip. Without it, he's no tailor, just another beggar in a city that chews up the poor. He pictures the merchant's wife, her lips curled in scorn, demanding repayment he can't afford. A cow. 2. He'd have to sell his kids. You hear the crowd before you see them, neighbours, drawn by gossip faster than flies to rot. Lost his needle, they whisper, half pity, half glee. In this world, a tailor's shame is public sport, like a hanging but slower. Thomas crawls under his table, splinters biting his knees, praying for a glint of iron. Nothing. His heart's a drum, each beat screaming debt, eviction, starvation. Modern life's got its glitches, lose your phone, your job's toast, but this is a crypto crash medieval style. A memory gnaws at him last night, stitching by candlelight, the needle felt off, heavy like it resented his grip. He'd heard tales of cursed needles, ones that slip away to punish the careless. Rubbish, he told himself, but now doubt creeps in cold as a crypt. The room feels smaller, the shadow sharper. Did the needle vanish, or did something take it? The door creaks. The merchant's wife looms her gaze ablade. My needle, she snaps. Thomas stammers, sweat beading like guilt. The crowd jeers and you wince, feeling the weight of a world where a sliver of metal holds more sway than a man's life. He'll beg, borrow, maybe steal, but the needle's gone and with it his future. Next time you thread a needle, check it twice. Might be cursed. Got a weirder tale, spill it. Step into a frostbitten market square in 14th century York where the clang of blacksmiths drowns out the hawkers' cries. You're shoulder to shoulder with peasants and merchants all gawking at Sir Baldwin, a grizzled knight whose chainmail clinks like a purse of coins. He's not here for ale or a new blade. Know this fool's trading his warhorse, a beast worth a small village, for a single needle polished to a wicked gleam. The crowd murmurs, half scoffing, half awed. A horse for a pin, madness, you think, but in this world a needle's sharper than any sword. Baldwin stands tall, his face carved with scars and stubborn pride. The needle rests in the merchant's palm, a sliver of iron that could mend a lord's cloak or stitch a peasant's hope against winter. It's a fair deal, Baldwin growls, handing over the reins of his steed, its breath steaming in the chill. The horse, a loyal beast that carried him through mud and blood, snorts as it's led away. You wince, picturing the battles it won. But Baldwin's eyes are locked on the needle like it's a holy relic. The merchant, a sly fox with a grin too wide, tucks the needle into a velvet pouch. Wise choice, he says, but the crowd's laughter stings. A knight without a horse is a jest, a ballad waiting to be sung in taverns. Yet some onlookers nod, knowing a needle's weight. It's not just thread it pulls, it's power, the kind that keeps families clothed, debts paid, futures sown. You'd trade your phone for a charger in a blackout. Baldwin's just playing the medieval version. As he takes the needle, Baldwin's fingers brush its point, and you swear it hums low and wrong like a plucked string in a silent room. The market's din fades for a heartbeat. He shakes it off, but you catch his glance, doubt, maybe fear. Whispers float through the crowd, cursed needles, ones that prick more than skin. In a world where a lost pin could spark ruin, who's to say? The merchant's already counting his new horse's worth, oblivious or uncaring. Baldwin strides off the needle, tucked close his pride, a fragile shield. The crowd parts, some mocking, others envious. You're left in the square, the air sharp with frost and greed. A needle outshines a warhorse, absurd, yet here you are, half convinced. It's not just iron. It's survival status, a thread through time. Got a crazier trade from history. Drop it below, this one's hard to beat. You're in a dim, stone-walled manor in 14th century Bruges, where candlelight dances on a family's grim ritual. The matriarch Agnes lies dying, her breath rattling like loose coins. Around her bed, her kin clutch a wooden box, its carvings worn smooth by generations. Inside, a single needle passed down through wills like a crown, each transfer sealed with chants to ward off its curse. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's a legacy, a blade of fate that could stitch fortune or unravel lives. Agnes's voice, frail but sharp, commands the box opened. Her daughter Marjorie trembles as she lifts the lid, revealing the needle on a scrap of linen. It's unremarkable, its tip dulled by years, yet the room feels heavier, the air thick with wax and dread. You stand in the shadows, an outsider, but even you feel the weight. This needle mended cloaks for lords, saved winters, built the family's name. But whispers cling to it, a great uncle, who pricked his thumb and died, raving a cousin whose crops failed after losing it. Coincidence, try telling that to the priest muttering prayers in the corner. Marjorie's tasked with inheriting it, her hands clammy as she takes the needle. The family chants old words about binding luck and banishing spirits. You catch a flicker in the candlelight like the needle's shadow twitches and your skin crawls. Superstition's a plague here as real as the rats in the walls. Agnes grips Marjorie's wrist, warning her guard it, or it guards you. The curse isn't spelled out bad luck, death ruin, but everyone knows. Losing it's not an option. It's a debt no one can pay. You think of heirlooms today, grandma's ring, a dusty watch. Harmless, right? But this needle's a medieval crypto wallet. One crash from catastrophe. The family's wealth, their standing hangs on a thread. Marjorie tucks it away, her face pale, already haunted. The priest sprinkles holy water, but the room's still cold, the needle's presence louder than Agnes's fading breaths. As you slip out, the manor's silence chokes you. A needle cursed or not rules this house. Got a creepier family heirloom story, share it, this one's stitching nightmares. You're elbow deep in a chaotic market in 14th century Rouen, where the air's a stew of sweat, fish and desperation. Stalls groan under cabbages and iron pots, but the real action's at a corner where a wiry trader Gilles hawks a single needle like it's the Holy Grail. It glints on a scrap of cloth, its point sharp enough to pierce dreams. The crowd merchants, tailors, even a nun with shifty eyes buzzes like flies shouting bids that could buy a flock of sheep. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's a ticket to power, and everyone's itching to cash in. Gilles is all grins, and Grease holds the needle aloft, milking the frenzy. Forged by Master Henri himself, he crows though you'd bet he nicked it from a drunk tailor. A burly merchant offers a cow, a tailor counters with 2. You're shoved aside as a scuffle breaks out, fists flying over a sliver of iron. It's Black Friday medieval style, imagine trampling grannies for a PS5 but dirtier. Someone's nose cracks blood mixing with mud, yet Jill just laughs, pocketing coins from side bets. A needle's worth a fortune, sure, but the real profit's in the chaos. You catch a tailor's eye, his hands trembling, desperate to win. He's not rich, just a fool who lost his last needle and knows it's this or starvation. The crowd's a beast roaring for the prize, but there's a chill beneath the noise. Whispers snake through the last needle Jill sold brought bad luck, a fire that gutted a shop. The needle glints, and for a moment it feels alive, its shadow too long in the noon sun. You blink trick of the light right, but in a world where a pin's loss means ruin, superstition's no joke. The bidding spikes. A merchant's wife, dripping in furs, tosses a gold ring into the mix. The nun mutters prayers, clutching her rosary like it'll outbid gold. Jill snatches. The ring declares the sale, and the crowd groans, half relieved, half furious. The tailor slumps, defeated, his future unravelling like a bad seam. You're stuck in the crush, the needle's new owner already parading it like a sceptre. The market churns on, but you can't shake the feeling that sliver of iron's more trouble than it's worth. Ever seen a crazier market deal? Share your wildest history tidbit, this one's a riot. You're crouched in a drafty hovel on the outskirts of 14th century Florence, where winter's teeth sink into every crack. The air's sharp with frost, and you're watching Maria, a peasant woman with hands like knotted roots, thread a borrowed needle through a tattered cloak. It's not hers, she'd need to sell her kids for one, but it's her lifeline. Each stitch, slow and deliberate, pulls the cloth together, a fragile shield against the cold that's already claimed her neighbour's toes. In this world, a needle doesn't just mend. It weaves dreams of survival, one prick at a time. Maria's fingers, red and cracked, fumble in the dim light of a single candle. The thread snaps, and she curses under her breath, glancing at the door. If the tailor who lent the needle catches her wasting thread, he'll demand it back. You feel the weight of her fear lose this chance, and her family's cloaks stay rags, letting winter win. It's not like today, where a torn jacket's a quick fix or a thrift store run. Here a needle's your Wi-Fi, and a blackout your last shot at staying connected to life. The hovel's quiet, save for the wind howling like a debt collector. Maria's kids huddle under a thin blanket, watching her work with big, hungry eyes. She mutters a prayer not to God, but to the needle, begging it to hold steady. You've heard the tales, needles that slip away cursed to punish the careless. This one feels heavy in her grip, almost resentful, but she shakes off the thought. Superstition's a luxury she can't afford yet. The candle's flicker makes the needle's point look too sharp, like it's watching. She finishes a seam, the cloak less a ruin now. It's not much, but it's hope another week maybe before the cold creeps deeper. You think of the nobles flaunting needle collections, their boxes of iron worth more than Maria's life. She'll return this one at dawn, her hands empty again, her dream stitched into someone else's tool. The injustice burns, but Maria's already on to the next tear her needle, a quiet rebellion against a world that buries the poor. Know a grittier survival story, drop it below this one's raw. You're slinking through a shadowed alley in 14th century Cologne, where the air's thick with the stench of tanneries and the distant clang of church bells. Your heart's pounding, matching the steps of Jacob, a scrawny thief with eyes like a cornered rat. He's clutching a stolen needle, its iron warm against his palm, pilfered from a tailor's shop in a moment of reckless greed. It's not just a tool, it's a fortune worth more than the bread he's starved for all week. But stealing a needle in this world, that's like swiping a crypto key in broad daylight. One wrong move and he's not just broke, he's dead. Jacob ducks behind a barrel, the needle tucked into his ragged sleeve. The alley's a maze of muck and murmurs, and he's already hearing the shouts. The tailor's wife, a woman with a voice like a cracked bell, has rallied a manhunt. Thief, she screeches, and the market's alive with torchlight and pitchforks. You feel the walls closing and the cobblestones slick underfoot. Jacob's no mastermind, just a fool who saw a glint of iron and thought it'd change his life. Steal a needle, lose a hand, you think, but the sarcasm's cold comfort when the mob's this close. He moves quick but clumsy, dodging a drunkard's cart. The needle's weight feels wrong, heavier than it should, like it's got a mind of its own. He's heard the stories, cursed needles that slip away, bringing ruin to thieves. Last week a cut-purse lost a finger to a haunted pin. Rubbish, Jacob tells himself, but his grip tightens, sweat stinging his eyes. The alley narrows and a shadow looms, a guard lantern raised. You hold your breath, the needle's point glinting like a traitor in the dark. Jacob bolts heart, hammering the mob's roar at his heels. He's not running for freedom now, just survival. The needle's his only shot, a trade for a boat out of this hellhole, but it's also a noose. You'd laugh at the irony, stealing a sewing tool to stitch a new life only to unravel everything, but the fear's too real. The guard's shout splits the night. and Jacob trips the needle, slipping nearly lost in the mud. He scrambles clutching it, and you swear it pricks him a tiny sting that feels like fate laughing. He vanishes into the dark, but the hunt's not over. The needle's a beacon drawing every greedy eye in Cologne. In a world where a sliver of iron outshines gold, there's no hiding. Got a wilder thief's tale, spill it, this one's a heartstopper. You're standing in a grand hall in 14th century Bruges, where chandeliers drip wax and the air's heavy with roast pheasant and ambition. Noblewomen glide through the feast, their silk gowns rustling like whispered secrets, but the real show's in their hands, ornate needle cases carved from bone, each cradling a metal needle that outshines the jewels on their fingers. Lady Beatrice, the host, lifts her case, a gaudy thing studded with pearls, and the room hushes. Her 3 needles, each a small fortune, gleam like captured stars. In this world, diamonds are nice, but needles, they're the ultimate flex medieval Rolexes for the elite. Beatrice smirks, passing the case to her rival, Lady Clara, whose own set of 4 needles draws gasps. The women preen their voices syrupy with false praise, while knights and merchants crane for a look. You're just a guest sipping sour wine, but you feel the tension envies a blade here sharper than any pin. A single needle could buy a horse, mend a dynasty's wardrobe, or secure a marriage. Clara's case snaps shut, the click loud as a gauntlet thrown down. It's not a feast. It's a battlefield, and needles are the weapons. You notice a young squire, wide-eyed, staring at the display. He's never seen such wealth, not in gold, but in iron. To him, it's alien, like watching influencers flaunt rare sneakers on your cracked phone screen. But the nobles get it. Needles aren't just tools. They're power hoarded while peasants beg for a stitch. Beatrice boasts of a needle blessed by a bishop, and you roll your eyes. Blessed more like cursed if the whispers are true. One guest mutters about a needle that moved at night, pricking its owner into madness. The hall's too loud to care, but you catch Beatrice's glance, her fingers twitching. The feast drags on, goblets clinking, but the needle cases steal the spotlight. Clara accidentally drops hers, revealing a 5th needle, and the room erupts in murmurs. Beatrice's face sours, she's been outdone. You slip toward the door, the opulence choking you. These women draping themselves in silk-clutched needles that could save lives, yet here they are playing status games. The squire's still staring, and you wonder if he dreams of stealing one. Good luck those needles are guarded like kings. Know a flashier status symbol from history. Share it, this one's dazzlingly absurd. You're in a smoky forge on the edge of 14th century Nuremberg, where the air's a furnace of soot and molten iron. The blacksmith hands, a bear of a man with hands like charred oak hammers, a glowing rod shaping it into a needle finer than a lord's dagger. Sparks fly stinging your skin, but Hans doesn't flinch. Each strikes a prayer, crafting a tool worth more than the gold in a merchant's vault. In this world, a needle's not just metal, it's art, a sliver of survival, revered like a painter's masterpiece. Hans is no mere smith. He's a legend, his needle stitching the dreams of tailors and nobles alike. The forge roars its heat, a living thing, and you're transfixed by the rod's transformation. Hans works with a jeweller's precision, cooling the metal in a hiss of steam, his eyes narrowed against the glare. The needle takes shape, its point sharp enough to pierce fate. A crowd gathers outside apprentices' tailors, even a priest whispering of Hans's craft like it's sorcery. You get it in a world where a lost pin means ruin. This man's a god forging lifelines from fire. It's like watching a coder spin an app from raw data, except one slip here could bankrupt a village. Hans tests the needle, running it across his thumb, a bead of blood proving its edge. The crowd murmurs approval, but you catch a strange note in the forger's hum, low and wrong, like a voice trapped in the flames. Hans pauses his hammer still, and you wonder if he hears it too. Village tales speak of forgers whispering secrets of needles born with curses. Nonsense, you think, but the air's heavy, the shadows too sharp. Hans shakes his head, muttering a prayer, and resumes, but his grip's tighter now. A merchant waits coins, jingling, ready to pay a cow's worth for this needle. It'll end up in a noble's case, flaunted at feasts while Hans wipes sweat and starts again. You marvel at the irony. He creates wealth, but sleeps on straw, his hands scarred for others' glory. The forger's glow fades as he hands the needle over its new owner, grinning like a thief. You step into the cold, the clang of Hans's hammer echoing like a heartbeat. His craft holds this world together, one stitch at a time. Got a wilder story of craftsmanship, share it, this one's forged in fire. You're in a cramped tavern in 14th century Bristol, where the air's sour with ale and secrets. The The fire sputters, casting shadows on villagers, huddled over mugs, their voices low, but electric with gossip. They're dissecting the ruin of the Miller family who lost everything, house crops, hope, after a needle vanished from their care. It wasn't just lost, they hiss. It was cursed a sliver of iron that brought death and debt. In this world, a needle's more than a tool. It's a lightning rod for whispers and gossip, spreads faster than plague, stitching fear into every ear. The story's fresh. The Millers borrowed a needle to mend sacks, only to find it gone by dawn. Days later, their barn burned and the wife fell ill, coughing blood. The tavern's alive with theories. Old Meg the weaver swears the needle was tainted, pricked by a witch years ago. You lean closer, the table sticky under your elbows, catching the tremor in Meg's voice. She's not alone. Others nod, recalling a tailor who died after losing a similar pin. It's medieval Twitter trending with curses and bad omens, and you're hooked despite yourself. You notice a young lad, barely old enough to shave, clutching a mug and listening wide-eyed. He's heard the tale's needles that vanish to punish greed, their points carrying doom. The fire pops and you swear the room dims the needle's absence louder than the chatter. A woman whispers of seeing a glint in the miller's yard at midnight like the needle moved itself. Superstition's a fever here, and you're not immune. Your skin prickles the tavern's creaking beams, sounding too much like warnings. The gossip spirals, each villager adding a twist. The needle's in the river, the millers sold it. It's cursed by a spurned lover. You'd laugh gossip's cheap, right? But the millers are real, their home ash, their kids starving. A needle did this, or the fear of it, and that's worse. You slip out the night cold, the village humming with hushed voices. In a world where a pin holds power, rumours are the thread that binds and breaks. Know a juicier rumour from history. Drop it, this one's got claws. You're in a shadowed convent in 14th century Ghent, where the air's damp with stone and the faint tang of incense. Sister Agnes, a nun with eyes sharp as thorns, kneels in a hidden alcove, her habit brushing the cold floor. She's not praying, she's guarding a secret, a small iron box tucked beneath a loose slab holding 3 stolen needles. In a world where the church preaches poverty, these slivers of iron are a sin, a hoard that could mend cloaks or buy favours. Agnes's rebellion is silent, stitched into the convent's shadows, and you're the only witness to her quiet defiance. The convent's walls echo with chants, but here it's just Agnes and her prize. She lifts the box, her fingers steady despite the risk. Each needle gleams, pilfered from careless tailors or bribed merchants, a secret kept from the abbess's prying eyes. You feel the weight of her choice. Exposure means exile, may be worse, in a world where a needle's worth a family's winter. It's not greed, it's power, a thread to weave influence in a cloister bound by rules. Think of it as a medieval side hustle, like smuggling crypto past a boss who'd fire you for it. Agnes tests a needle, pricking her thumb, a bead of blood swallowed by the dark. The convent's silence feels alive, the stones holding their breath. You've heard the tales, needles cursed to betray their keepers, slipping away to spark ruin. Last month, a sister was whipped for losing a pin, her screams a warning. Agnes scoffs at superstition, but her grip tightens, the needle's point catching the moonlight like a warning. The alcove's shadows shift, and for a heartbeat the box feels heavier, as if the needles resent their cage. You shake it off, imagination right, but her eyes flicker with doubt. She hides the box, the slab scraping like a judgment. The chants resume, and Agnes slips back to her duties, her secret safe for now. You're left in the cold, marvelling at her nerve. These needles could clothe the poor, yet here they are buried for leverage in a holy war of whispers. In a world where iron outshines grace, even nuns play dirty. Got a bolder tale of hidden rebellion? Share it, this one's stitched with guts. You're huddled in a crumbling shack in 14th century Lyon, where winter's howl rips through the walls like a thief. Jean, a widow with frostbitten fingers, clutches a borrowed needle, its point her only defence against the cold that's already killed her neighbour. She's mending a cloak, each stitch a battle to keep her kids from freezing. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's a lifeline as vital as Wi-Fi in a blackout, but it belongs to the elite lords and ladies who hoard them like gold while Jean begs for a loan. Every prick of the needle stings a reminder of a world that buries the poor. The shack's air is ice, the candle's flame barely holding back the dark. Jean's hands tremble, the thread snapping as her fingers numb. She can't fail the tailor who lent the needle counts every stitch, and losing it means debt she'll never pay. You feel her desperation, the kind that gnaws deeper than hunger. A mended cloak could mean another week, maybe 2, before the cold claims her family. It's not like today where a torn jacket's a quick fix. Here are needles, your last stand, and Jean's fighting with borrowed time. She mutters a prayer, lips cracked as the needle bites her skin. The wind screams and you catch a glint in the needle's point sharper than it should be, like it's watching. Village whispers speak of cursed needles, ones that slip to punish the unworthy. Jean's too tired for tales, but her grip falters, the needle heavy, almost alive. You blink the shack's shadows, twisting, and for a moment the cold feels personal, like it wants her to fail. She shakes it off, stitching faster, her kid's shallow breath spurring her on. The cloak's patched a fragile victory. Jean returns the needle at dawn, her hands empty again, her survival tied to another's whim. You step into the snow, the sting of injustice sharper than the wind. Nobles flaunt needles at feasts, but for Jean they're a fleeting miracle hoarded by those who don't feel winter's bite. Know a tougher survival story. Drop it, this one cuts deep. You're in a dimly lit warehouse in 14th century Venice, where the air's thick with salt and the creak of ships beyond the walls. Master Paolo, a merchant with a fox's grin, and eyes like polished coins, stands over a locked chest, its iron bands glinting in the torchlight. Inside isn't gold or spices, but a hoard of needles, dozens each, a fortune enough to rival a lord's treasury. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's wealth power, a thread through the chaos of trade and winter. Paolo's stash could clothe a city, but he guards it like a dragon, his greed sharper than any point. He opens the chest just a crack, and you catch the gleam of iron, each needle nestled in cloth like a relic. His fingers, soft from counting coins, hover over them possessive. You're just a hired guard, your sword heavy, but you feel the pull. Each needle could buy a horse, a house, a life. Paolo's no fool. He trades them for favours, brides, even silence his wealth sown into the city's underbelly. It's like a modern tycoon hoarding rare stocks, except this stash could save or sink a family. Gold's nice, you think, but needles last. The warehouse is quiet, save for the drip of seawater through the stones. Paolo recounts a tale a rival who tried to steal his hoard, only to vanish his ship lost to a storm. He chuckles, but his eyes dart to the chest and you wonder. Village whispers speak of cursed needles, ones that betray their keepers, pricking fortunes into ruin. The torch flickers, and the chest shadow seems to shift the needle's glint too bright, like they're watching. You scoff superstitions for peasants, but Paolo's hand lingers hesitant, as if the hoard hums with secrets. He locks the chest, the clank echoing like a vow. You're dismissed, but the air's heavy, Paolo's greed a weight you carry into the night. His needles could mend 1,000 cloaks, yet they're buried here, fueling his empire. In a world where a pin outshines a crown, wealth is a dangerous stitch. Got a greedier tale from history, share it, this one's locked tight. You're in a moonlit grove outside 14th century Toledo, where the air's sharp with pine and the flicker of candles. A circle of women cloaked in secrecy huddles around a crude altar, their hands busy with needles and thread. They're not mending clothes, but weaving luck, each stitch a plea to bind fortune and banish ruin. In this world, a needle's more than iron, it's a charm, a blade against fate, and these rituals, half prayer, half defiance, are as vital as bread. You're an outsider, hidden in the shadows, but the weight of their hope pulls you in. The leader, Marta, threads her needle with bloodied thread, her finger pricked as an offering. The others follow their stitches, uneven but fervent, sewing scraps of cloth into a patchwork of dreams, health, harvest, love. You smell wax and iron, the candle's flames trembling as Marta chants her voice low and fierce. It's not church approved. The priest would call it witchcraft, but these women know better. A needle's power lies in its point, and in a world where a lost pin means starvation, luck's worth a little blood. Think of it like betting your last dollar on a crypto moonshot, except failure here means frostbite or worse. Marta's needle glints, catching the moon, and you swear it pulses the thread taut like a living thing. Whispers haunt the grove needles that bind fates too tightly, stitching curses instead of blessings. Last spring a woman's ritual failed, her child dead by dawn. The women stitch fast to their fear, sharp as the needles bite. You feel it too. The grove's too quiet, the shadows too deep, like the stitches are pulling something else into being. Marta finishes her cloth heavy with blood and thread, and the circle exhales, but the air's colder now. They bury their work, hiding it from prying eyes, and slip into the night. You're left alone, the grove silent, the candles snuffed. Those needles, small as they are, wove more than cloth. They stitched hope to desperation, maybe something darker. In a world where iron holds sway, every ritual's a gamble with fate. Know a stranger ritual from history. Drop it, this one's threaded with dread. You're trudging through the muddy streets of 14th century Lisbon, where rain lashes the cobblestones and the air reeks of rot and despair. João, a beggar with a face like crumpled leather, huddles under a sagging awning, his eyes fixed on a tailor's shop across the way. Inside, a needle glints its iron point, a distant star in his world of want. He dreams of owning it, not to sew but to sell, to trade that sliver of wealth for a warm bed, a full belly, a life. In this world, a needle's a fortune, but for João, it's a cruel mirage mocking him as reality grinds his hopes to dust. The street pulses with life. Merchants haggling, carts creaking, but João's world is small, bounded by hunger and cold. He imagines the needle in his hand, its weight a promise of escape. With it he could barter for a cloak, maybe a boat to somewhere kinder. You feel his longing sharp as a blade, but the shop's glow is a wall he'll never breach. A needle's for nobles' tailors, not filth like him. It's like dreaming of a private jet while you're stuck in a ditch, except this ditch smells of piss and despair. A passerby laughs, tossing a rotten apple at João. Dreaming of gold beggar, the taunt stings, but João's used to it. He's heard the tales needles curse to slip from greedy hands, leaving ruin. He doesn't care, curse, or no, it's his only shot. The rain soaks his rags and you catch a glint in the mud, a trick of light that looks like iron. His heart skips, but it's just a pebble and the hope gutters out. The shop's needle shines on untouchable and you swear it watches its point crueler than the jeers. João shuffles off his dream, fading with each step. The street doesn't care, another beggar's just noise. You're left in the rain, the tailor's shop, a beacon of a world that hoards its lifelines. João's dream was small, but in a world where a needle outshines a man's life, even small dreams break hard. Got a sadder tale of broken dreams? Share it. This one's soaked in grief. You're in a foggy clearing outside 14th century Prague, where dawn's chill clings to the grass, and the air hums with steel and stupidity. Two men, Peter a wiry tailor and Lucas a merchant's son, face off swords, drawn their breaths steaming. The prize, a single needle, its iron glint lying on a stump, worth more than the horses tethered nearby. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's a fortune, a status, and these fools are ready to bleed for it. You're among the crowd, half thrilled, half aghast. Swords for a sewing pin, classic medieval brain rot. Peter claims he crafted the needle. Lucas swears he bought it fair. Neither will yield, and now their blades flash the clang of steel sharp as the crowd's cheers. You wince at the absurdity imagined dueling over a rare Pokemon card, but with actual stab wounds. Peter's quick, his sword a blur, but Lucas is heavier, his strikes brutal. The needle sits indifferent, its point catching the sun like it's amused. The crowd roars, betting pigs and ale, and you're caught up, the tension thick as the fog. Peter nicks Lucas's arm, blood staining the grass, but Lucas charges his sword, grazing Peter's ribs. You smell sweat and iron, the clearing alive with grunts and curses. Whispers float this needle's cursed, pricking its owners into madness. Lost owner, a weaver died, raving after a cut. You scoff, but the needle's glint feels wrong too bright, like it's egging them on. Peter stumbles and you hold your breath, the crowd's roar drowning the thud of boots. In a world where a pin's loss means ruin, this duel's no game. Lucas disarms Peter his sword at the tailor's throat. The crowd erupts and Lucas snatches the needle triumphant. Peter collapses alive, but broken, his future slashed. You turn away, the clearing's thrill souring. The needle's claimed another victim and you're not sure it's the blood. In a world where iron sparks such folly, every duel's a stitch in a mad tapestry. Know a dumber fight from history. Drop it, this one's a bloody farce. You're in a creaking cottage in 14th century Siena, where the air's heavy with dust and the weight of survival. Widow Clara, her hands worn like old leather, sits by a dying fire, her eyes on a small wooden box. Inside are 4 needles each, a relic of her late husband's trade, their iron points glinting like stars in her dim world. In this world, a needle's not just a tool, it's a legacy. A fragile thread securing her children's future against a winter that spares no one. Clara's sacrificed years of hunger to keep these needles feels heavier than the box, and you're here witnessing her quiet fight. The fire pops, casting shadows on Clara's face, etched with grief and grit. She opens the box, her fingers tracing each needle, memories of her husband's calloused hands stitching their life together. These needles mended cloaks for merchants, paid for bread, kept the landlord at bay. Now they're her dowry for her daughter, a barter to keep her son from the fields. You feel the stakes lose one and her family's future unravels. It's like clinging to a stock portfolio in a crash, except Clara's betting on iron not paper, and the market's a cruel medieval street. She lifts a needle, its weight a promise and a burden. Village tales whisper of cursed needles, ones that prick their keepers into ruin. Clara's heard them a neighbour lost a needle and her home to fire, but she trusts her husband's craft. Yet the firelight flickers, and the needle's shadow seems to stretch too long, like it's listening. You shake it off, but Clara's grip tightens, her lips moving in a silent prayer. In a world where a pin holds a family's fate, doubts a splinter under the skin. Clara closes the box, her resolve hard as the frost outside. She'll trade one needle soon enough to buy her daughter a match, but it'll gut her to let it go. You step into the cold, the cottage's warmth, fading her sacrifice, lingering like smoke. Those needles, small as they are, carry a widow's life, her love stitched into every point. In a world where iron outshines hope, Clara's legacy is a heavy thread. Got a heavier tale of sacrifice. Share it, this one's woven with heart. You're in a storm-lashed village in 14th century Dorset, where rain hammers the thatch and dread chokes the air. The villagers huddle in a smoky hall, their faces taut, debating a needle blamed for 3 deaths, a tailor, his wife and a child all gone since the pin vanished from their care. It's not just lost, it's cursed, they whisper, a sliver of iron-sowing ruin. In this world, a needle's more than a tool. It's a spectre, and the village wants answers, their fear sharp as the thunder outside. You're among them, caught in the storm of suspicion. The hall's lit by flickering torches, the air sour with wet wool and panic. Old Edith the weaver points a bony finger, claiming the needle was tainted by a spurned apprentice's curse. The tailor's shop burned, the wife drowned, the child fell ill too much for chance, she hisses. You feel the room's pulse quicken, eyes darting to the shadows. A farmer swears he saw the needles glint by the river moving alone. You'd scoff, but the storm's howl feels personal, and the needle's absence is a weight its shadow creeping across the hall like a ghost. A young priest, barely steady, calls for calm, but his voice cracks. He's heard the tales, needles that prick fate slipping away to punish greed. The villagers demand a hunt, a ritual to banish the curse. You're swept up your hands, trembling as they pass a candle, its flame dancing like the needle's point. The hall's shadows twist and you swear, one moves sharp and thin like iron cutting the dark. It's madness, but in a world where a pin's lost sparks death, fear's the only logic. They resolve to search at dawn to burn the needle if found. You stumble into the rain, the hall's heat gone, the curse a knot in your chest. Was it real or just fear stitching lies? In a world where a needle holds such power, the truth's as slippery as the mud underfoot. Know a creepier village tale? Drop it, this one's got shadows. You're in a bustling workshop in late 14th century Milan, where the air's sharp with iron and the hum of progress. The once revered needle, a treasure worth more than diamonds, lies in dusty cases, its gleam dulled by time. Blacksmiths, now masters of new forges, churn out needles by the dozen. Their points no longer rare, but common like pebbles in a stream. In this world, a needle's fall from glory is a quiet tragedy, its status as a symbol of wealth, unravelling as craftsmanship outpaces obsession. You're here among tailors and merchants, watching a relic become a tool. The workshop buzzes, hammers ringing as apprentices stack needles in heaps. A tailor, old Matteo, scoffs at the piles, his hands scarred from years of borrowing single pins at a king's ransom. He recalls knights trading horses, widows hoarding iron, madness now quaint. You feel the shift, what was a fortune is now a trifle sold for pennies. It's like watching a crypto bubble burst, except this crash leaves no ruin, only indifference. Matteo picks up a needle, its edge perfect but unremarkable, and tosses it back. The cases once locked like vaults sit open, their magic gone. Yet, there's a pang in the air, a whisper of loss. Matteo mutters of curses needles that once pricked fates. A young smith laughs, but you catch a glint in the dust, a lone needle's shadow sharper than it should be. The workshop's noise drowns it, but you wonder, did the old tales hold truth? In a world where a pin ruled lives, its fall feels like a betrayal, a god stripped of divinity. The tailors work on their stitches steady, but the reverence is gone, replaced by the clatter of a new age. You step outside the city's pulse louder than the forge. The needle's glory fades a footnote in a world chasing bigger shines, but its shadow lingers a reminder of when iron outshone gold. Got a tale of a fallen icon? Share it, this one's quietly brutal. You're in a quiet attic in 14th century Antwerp where dusk paints the walls gold and the air's soft with the scent of old wool. An elderly seamstress, Livia, sits alone, her needle moving through a worn cloak, each stitch a whisper of a world gone mad for iron. The needles no longer are treasure forges, spit them out like sparks, but to Livia it's a thread through history, a symbol of human hunger, greed and resilience. In this world, a needle's story is humanity sown with ambition and unravelled by time, and you're here tracing its final stitches. Livia's hands knotted with age work, slowly the needle's point catching fading light. She's seen it all, nobles flaunting pins, beggars dreaming of them, villagers torn by their loss. Each stitch recalls a life, her father's pride in a single needle, her sister's ruin when one vanished. You feel the weight of those years, the way a sliver of iron wove dreams and dread. It's like scrolling an old social media feed, each post a snapshot of hope or heartbreak, except here the stakes were survival. She pauses the needle still, and you catch a flicker in its glint like it holds the ghosts of its past. Whispers of curses linger, needles that pricked fates, sparked fires, but Livia smiles unbothered. To her the needle's power was never magic, only human, a mirror of want and will. The attic's silence wraps you, the cloak nearly done its patches, a map of endurance. In a world where iron once ruled, Livia's stitches are a quiet rebellion, proof that even fallen gods leave marks. You leave as night falls, the city humming below. The needle's reign is over, but its story endures, threaded through every seam of a world that keeps sewing. Got a deeper reflection on history's obsession? Share it. This one's stitched to last. You're in a draughty hall in 13th century Toulouse, where torchlight dances on stone, and the air's rich with wine and roasted boar. Guillaume, a minstrel with a lute slung like a lover, plucks a melody that hushes the lord's rowdy guests. His fingers nimble despite the cold weave a tune of lost nights, each note bright as stained glass. The crowd knight's ladies, a grim-faced steward leans in, spellbound, their applause a fleeting crown. In this world, a minstrel's art is gold, but Guillaume's reward awaits outside a stable reeking of manure where he'll sleep with pigs. Encore, sure from the pig pen. The song ends, and the lord tosses a coin, a stingy clink for a night's magic. Guillaume bows his smile tight, and you follow him out, the hall's warmth fading to a bitter wind. The stable looms, its stench a punched, damp straw horse sweat and worse. He slumps against a stall lute, cradled like a child, the manure's bite sharper than the lord's indifference. You wince, picturing a modern busker crashing on a park bench after a viral gig. Art's no shield here. It's a sentence exiling Guillaume to Muck for daring to sing. He tunes his lute, the notes soft against the snorts of beasts. A rat skitters, and you catch a glint in the dark, his coin, his only warmth. The stable's a grave, yet his music lingers defiant. In a world that worships song but scorns the singer, Guillaume's melody is a middle finger to the muck. Got a grittier artist's tale? Share it, this one stinks of truth. You're in a smoky village square in 14th century York where a bonfire crackles and the air's thick with fear and damp wool. The villagers huddle their eyes, darting to a minstrel, Elias, who strums a haunting tune on his lute. His song meant to soothe stirs whispers. Instead, crops failed, a cow died, and now they're sure his music's cursed, a witch's spell in disguise. In this world, a minstrel's art is a tightrope, one wrong note tipping admiration to dread. You're among the crowd, feeling their panic like a pulse. Elias plays on his fingers steady, but the fire's glow shows sweat on his brow. A woman, Agnes, points her voice shrill. His song soured the fields. Others nod, clutching charms their fear, fed by tales of minstrels summoning spirits. You smell the smoke, sharp and accusing, as the crowd edges closer. It's medieval cancel culture, a viral mob, ready to burn a singer for a bad harvest. Elias's lute hums its strings, catching the light, but to them it's a devil's tool, each note a hex. He stops the silence heavier than the fire's roar. A boy swears he heard the lute sing alone last night, and you feel a chill, the square's shadows too deep. Superstition's a fever here, and you're not immune, the strings glint almost alive. Elias meets Agnes's glare, his voice calm. Just music. but the crowd's not buying their murmurs a noose. You're stuck, the fire's heat no match for the cold of their fear. In a world where songs are curse, Elias is already damned. Know a wilder witch hunt, drop it, this one's got teeth. You're in a foul-smelling stable in 13th century Bruges, where the air's thick with straw dust and the stench of horse dung. Minstrel Roland, his fingers stained with ink and spite hunches over a scrap of parchment, his quill scratching out a ballad sharp enough to cut. Last night he played for a pompous lord who tossed him a halfpenny and a sneer, then banished him to this muck. Now Roland's weaving revenge, each line a jab at the lord's greed and gouty limp. In this world a minstrel's song is a weapon, and Roland's aiming for blood metaphorically unless the crowd gets rowdy. The stables dim a single candle spitting wax as Roland mutters his verse, grinning like a fox. His lordship's purse tight as his boots, he scribes the words, a middle finger to the man who dined on swan while Roland choked on stable air. You smell the ink sharp and sour and feel the straws itch underfoot. It's like a modern rapper dropping a diss track on a stingy promoter, except Roland's stage is a tavern, and one wrong word means a noose. His quill dances each jab a risk, but the lord's humiliation will be worth it. A horse snorts, and Roland pauses, his lute glinting in the corner. Whispers haunt these stable songs that curse their singers' notes, that linger like ghosts. You catch a hum, faint and wrong, from the lute's strings, but Roland shakes it off his quill, relentless. The ballad's done a blade of wit to be sung tomorrow, and you're hooked, the stable's gloom no match for his fire. In a world that buries minstrels in muck, Roland's song is a spark burning brighter than the Lord's gold. Know a sharper revenge tale, share it, this one's got venom. You're in a gilded hall in 14th century Paris, where goblets clink, and the air's heavy with spiced meat and royal ego. Minstrel Thierry his lute, slung low weaves a ballad for the king, each note a thread of valour that hushes the court. The lords and ladies dripping in velvet applaud, their eyes bright with wine and lies. Thierry's a star for a moment, his music a crown until the feast ends and he's shoved out to a stable left with scraps and the stench of wet hay. Royal gig, peasant bed, you think, smirking at the medieval hustle. Thierry bows his fingers sore and pockets a single coin, barely enough for bread. You follow him to the stable, the hall's glow fading to a damp chill. The air's a slap manure mould and the snuffle of pigs. He slumps on a straw pile, gnawing a crust the cook's tossed out his lute, propped like a tired friend. It's like a rock star crashing in a motel after a stadium show, except Thierry's stage is straw, and the crowd's just rats. You smell the decay, the scraps bitter in the cold. He hums soft and defiant, but the stable's grim, the shadows heavy. Tales linger, minstrels cursed for their songs, their notes souring luck. You glance at the lute, its strings glinting, and swear they twitch a faint note hanging. Thierry laughs it off, but his eyes flicker. In a world that feasts on art yet starves the artist, his melody's a fragile shield against the muck. Got a wilder tale of fame's cost, drop it, this one's raw. You're in a muddy village lane in 13th century Cologne, where dusk cloaks the air in damp and dread. Minstrel Albrecht, his hands empty as his heart stumbles from a tavern, his lute, his voice, his life stolen. The villager's eyes, narrow with fear, took it convinced its strings hum with witchcraft, each note a spell to sour milk or blight crops. In this world, a minstrel's art is fragile, a spark snuffed by superstition, and Albrecht's loss cuts deeper than the cold biting his skin. You're with him feeling the void where his music once lived. The lane's quiet, save for the creak of shutters and whispers of devil's tool. Albrecht's fingers twitch, tracing the ghost of his lute's curves. It was no relic, just wood and gut, but it fed him charmed lords, softened knights in filthy stables. Now it's locked in the church, awaiting a priest's torch. You smell the tavern's sour ale on his breath mixed with the mud's decay. It's like a YouTuber losing their channel to a hack years of work gone, and the crowd cheers the thief. Art's no shield here, it's a target. Albrecht stops staring at the church's silhouette, its spire a judgment. He's heard the tales, lutes that sing alone cursing their players. Last week a minstrel's song was blamed for a storm. He scoffs, but his hands shake the lane's shadows too sharp. You catch a faint hum like strings plucked in the dark and your pulse skips. Just wind right, Albrecht's eyes meet yours hollow, his art stolen by fear. In a world that burns what it loves, his empty hands are a requiem. Know a crueler theft of art, share it, this one's a gut punch. You're in a rotting barn in 14th century Devon, where the air's a stew of mould horse sweat and defiance. Three minstrels, Leon Margot and Tom sprawl on straw, their lutes and pipes glinting in torchlight. Banished from the manor after a feast, they're in exile, but not broken, sharing tales and tunes, to spit in the face of their lot. The barn's alive, with their voices each note a rebellion against the muck and the lords who cast them here. You're among them, the stable's filth, no match for their fire. Leon strums a bawdy ballad about a stingy knight, his grin sharp as his chords. Margot counters with a tale of a cursed song that felled a village, her pipes wail, eerie in the dark. Tom half-drunk laughs, spinning a yarn of a lute that played itself. You smell the straws rot, hear the horses' snorts, but their music drowns it, a dive bar open mic in a medieval hellhole. It's like a punk band jamming in a squat, flipping off the world that trashes them. Their art's a shield, fragile but fierce. The torch sputters and you catch a glint from Leon's lute, its strings humming faintly unplucked. Whispers cling to these barn songs that curse their singers lingering like ghosts. The minstrels ignore it. Their voice is louder, but you feel the chill, the barn's shadows twitching. In a world that buries art in dung, their songs are a middle finger, a spark in the gloom. Got a bolder tale of defiance. Drop it, this one's got grit. You're in a foggy market square in 14th century Norwich where the air's damp with mist and the threat of violence. Minstrel Jocelyn, her lute scarred but proud, strums a forbidden ballad, each chord a defiant slap against the town's ban on witch songs. The crowd, a mix of curious peasants and glaring guards, hums with tension. Her music's a crime, punishable by lash or worse. In this world, a minstrel's art is a spark in a powder keg, and Jocelyn's playing with fire her notes, a rebellion against a world that buries her in muck. Her fingers fly the lute's chords sharp, mocking the mayor's greed with lyrics too clever to be safe. You smell the market's mud, and fish feel the crowd's heat as they sway torn between awe and fear. Guards close in their boots, heavy, but Jocelyn doesn't falter her voice a blade. It's like a protest singer facing riot cops, except her stage is a crate, and the stakes are medieval, think dungeon, not detention. Her song's a middle finger to the lords who feast while she sleeps with pigs, and you're hooked her defiance electric. A guard grabs her arm, but the lute hums its strings glinting in the fog, and you swear it sings alone a faint wail that chills the square. Whispers of cursed songs, tunes that blight crops haunt this town, and the crowd hesitates. Jocelyn pulls free her final note, ringing a dare to the guards. You're caught in the thrill, the mist, thick her rebellion, a spark in a world that crushes art. In a stable tonight, she'll pay, but here she's free, her music louder than their chains. No, a bolder act of defiance, share it, this one's a firebrand. You're in a crumbling barn in 15th century Brittany, where the air's sour with straw, and the weight of forgotten songs. A lone minstrel, old Muck, sits on a barrel, his lute strings warn his voice a rasp, as he hums a melody of lost loves. His life feasts for kings' knights, in stables clings to each note a legacy forged in muck and defiance. In this world, a minstrel's art is a flicker in the dark, and Muck's fading tunes carry the spirit of every singer cast to the margins. You're here, the barn's gloom, no match for his quiet fire. Muck's fingers gnarled as roots trace the lute, each strum a memory of applause and scorn. He's seen it all, crowds bewitched, villages burned by fear of his craft. You smell the barn's rot, hear the drip of rain through the roof, but his song holds you raw human, a thread through centuries of struggle. It's like a bluesman in a dive bar singing for ghosts, except Muck's ghosts are real, their echoes in the straw. His art survived superstition, starvation, and stables a testament to the soul's stubborn spark. The lute hums its final note soft, and you catch a glint in the dark like the strings breathe. Tales of cursed songs linger, but Muck's smile says it's just music, the only truth he needs. You step into the night, his melody lingering a reminder that even in muck the human spirit sings. In a world that buries its artists, Muck's echoes endure, stitched into time. Got a deeper tale of legacy, drop it, this one's eternal. You're ankle-deep in blood-soaked mud on a 10th century battlefield in Northumbria, where the air chokes with iron and the moans of the dying. The clash of swords has faded, leaving a carpet of corpses under a grey sky. Women from the nearby village, their faces grim, Move among the dead knives flashing as they sever hands Saxon. Viking it doesn't matter. They stuff the grisly trophies into leather pouches, each thud a tally of enemies slain. In this world, a hand's not just flesh, it's glory, a medieval body count worn like a badge. Handbags, medieval style, less Gucci, more gory. The mud sucks at your boots, the stench of rotten steel, a fist in your gut. A woman Hilda works methodically, her blade slicing through bone, her pouch sagging with weight. Each hand's a story, warriors who fought now reduced to her tally. You wince the act brutal, yet she hums her focus absolute. It's like true crime fans collecting serial killer merch, except Hilda's hands are real, her pride raw. These pouches will parade through the village proof of victory, though the smell could wake the dead. A raven caws, and you catch a glint in Hilda's pouch, a severed finger twitching. Or is it the wind whispers haunt these fields? Hands that carry spirits cursing their takers. Hilda scoffs, but her knife hesitates, the mud colder now. You're stuck, the horror sinking in a world where death's a craft and pouches are art. In this grim harvest, every hand's a heavy price. Know a bloodier trophy tale, share it, this one's soaked red. You're in a raucous village square in 11th century Mercia where bonfires roar and the air's thick with cheers and sour mead. The women fresh from the battlefield parade their pouches heavy with severed hands, each a gruesome trophy of victory. Astrid, her face fierce, holds hers aloft, the leather straining with the weight of a dozen hands, the heaviest yet. The crowd roars, crowning her hero, a warrior queen in a world that glorifies gore. You're swept up the stench of decay, a cruel counterpoint to their pride. It's a medieval influencer flex, gruesome clout in a village drunk on blood. Astrid strides through the square, her pouch, swinging the hands inside, thudding like a drum. Villagers chant her name, their faces alight, but you gag the smells of wall rot and leather choking the air. Her triumphs reel, each hand a foe slain, a story to boast. It's like posting a trophy on social media, except Astrid's likes are screams, her followers a mob. The other women scowl, their lighter pouches a quiet shame, but Astrid's untouchable, her glory stitched in flesh. A child points wide-eyed, swearing a hand moved in the pouch. Whispers creep spirits trapped, seeking revenge. Astrid laughs, but her grip tightens, the fire's glow too harsh. You feel the unease, the square's joy brittle. In a world where death's a crown, Astrid's triumph is a heavy load, its cost hidden in the stench. Got a wilder tale of twisted glory, drop it, this one's grim. You're in a dim hut in 10th century Wessex, where the air's heavy with tallow smoke and the reek of decay. Githa, a wiry woman with steady hands, hunches over a leather pouch, its surface bulging with the severed hands inside. Her needle, a rare treasure, weaves crimson thread through the hide stitching patterns, swirls knots thorns that turn the gruesome trophy into eerie art. In this world, a pouch of hands isn't just a tally, it's a canvas, each stitch a boast of victory, though the horror seeps through every prick. You're here, the needles glint a grim fascination. Githa's fingers move with care, the needle piercing leather and grazing the rot beneath. You smell the decay sharp and sour as the pouch grows ornate, a grotesque heirloom for her kin. It's like bedazzling a true crime relic, except Githa's craft is honour, her stitches a village saga. The fire sputters, casting shadows that dance across the pouch, and you wince, each hand inside feels too present, their fingers curled like secrets. She hums, but her eyes flick to the pouch, wary, as if it might bite back. Whispers haunt the village pouches that pulse at night, threads woven with spirits' wrath. Last moon, a weaver's hut burned her pouch, blamed. You catch a twitch in the leather, a thread taut under moonlight, and your pulse skips. Just the wind, right Githa's needle, pauses her breath short, but she stitches on defiant or desperate. In a world where death's a masterpiece, her art's a dare, each stitch threading horror to pride. The pouch gleams beautiful and wrong, a nightmare sewn tight. Know a creepier craft, share it, this one's stitched with dread. You're in a moonlit yard in 11th century Kent, where the air's crisp with frost, and the thrill of fear. A huddle of children, eyes wide, creep toward a shed where the villagers' pouches of severed hands hang trophies from the last battle. The dare's simple touch one and live to brag. The leather sacks, heavy with their grim loads, sway, faintly their stench a warning. In this world, death's a game for kids, a nightmare edition of hide and seek, and you're with them heart-pounding as they inch closer. The leader, young Edric, his voice a shaky boast, points to the largest pouch, its stitches glinting like teeth. You smell the rot, a wall of decay, and feel the kid's trembling fingers brush the night air. They giggle, but its brittle tales of vengeful spirits cling to these pouches, hands that grab in the dark. It's like kids daring each other to sneak into a haunted house, except this haunt's real, and the ghosts have fingers. Edric reaches his hand, quivering the pouch too still like it's waiting. A twig snaps, and they freeze the pouch's shadow looming. A girl